Hey guys, TheKaijudoChannel here with the next top 10 lists, and that is top 10 water cards of Duel Masters. Starting off at number 10 is Illusionary Merfolk. Now, I know that this card isn't usable in, every deck that uses water, but it's still quite a good card because, Cyberlords are very good race in the water civilization, and you pretty much just summon this guy, draw 3, if you have a Cyberlord on your field. Now, a card that reads draw 3 is always something to look at because drawing cards is such a crazy good part of any trading card game, and it just gives you more options to add into your hand. And drawing 3 off just one card is crazy. And not only that, you get a creature on board as well with 4,000 power. Number 9 is Crystal Memory. So this card is pretty much a souped up logic cube or dimension gate in that you can search out any card in your deck. Of course, you have to pay that extra 1 mana, so it's a level 4 spell. And it's still a shield trigger though, so I mean it's not that bad. The only thing though is that I think there's better things that you can do in turn 4 or other turns than just searching out a card. So this card would obviously be better in your shields. There's nothing wrong with hard casting it at all. So I think this card is reserved more for just the control decks and running only a couple of them. So that late game you could search out that Bull Medius or whatever you need. Number 8 is Spiral Gate. Very nice card. It's just a quick removal spell that's probably a lot better for those aggro-ish rush kind of decks that use water somehow. It's just a very cheap form of removal. There's not much to say. It's a shield trigger and it's only a level 2 spell, and you're pretty much just bouncing a creature your opponent has to their hand. Now, the reason why this card was limited to 1 in the Japanese game is because of the release of psychic creatures, and that's pretty much like that extra deck of 8 psychic crazy creatures, and then if you use Spiral Gate on one of those, they just go back to the deck because you can't have those in your hand. So that is quite a ridiculous, overpowered card in the Japanese meta. And in a future video, I guess I'll probably talk about those psychic cards, so stay tuned for that. Coming in at number 7 is Thrash Crawler. A very simple card. It's just, it's pretty much 2 things in one. Because you get a huge blocker, which of course is always great, and you get to fix your mana a little bit. So, of course, in the early games, sometimes there's some cards that you wish you could keep, but you can't because it's too expensive and you can't really play it yet, and you're going to have to hope to draw another one, and you put in your mana, or something like that. And then, with these control decks that use Thrash Crawler, they pretty much save this for, a time where they see something in mana that they could really use in this duel. So, by using Thrash Crawler, you don't have to worry too much about what's in your mana because you could easily fix it and get it back to your hand. As a matter of fact, the Continental Championships won with, I think, 3 or 4 of these Thrash Crawlers because they combined it with the Charger cards that recently came out, which pretty much, when you use it, they go to your mana zone. So you can use Volcano Charger, which is like a Crimson Hammer that goes to your mana, and then you can use Thrash Crawler and get it back, and you can just keep on going over and over again, and that's pretty much why Thrash Crawler is really good. Number 6 is a personal favorite of mine, Moreno Mansur. This card is just ridiculous. Look at the duels that use Moreno Mansur, and pretty much more than half the time you draw at least 2, and sometimes 3. If you watch my duels with Moreno Control, I think I hit 3 draw cards off Moreno Mansur, I think 3 times, and then the other times 2. I don't think I ever drew 1 or 0. Of course I got maybe lucky, and other people have been unlucky. They've been drawing just 3 waters over and over again, but I guess it really depends on how you build the deck so that you don't run too many water cards. The only reason that it's kind of a bit lowish on the list is that you could actually play this for a lot cheaper in the Japanese game. In the Japanese game, I think there's a creature that does the same thing for 4, and a spell for 3 that does the exact same thing, and Moreno Mansur is kind of outside of the spotlight in that sense. So, I know I can't really compare to the Japanese game, but I don't know. I think 5 is a decent cost, but of course it could be better. Coming in at number 5 is Aqua Hulkus. Such a simple card, and at this point, these top 5 cards are pretty much usable in any deck that uses water. Almost. Very, very close. Now, this card is very simple. It's a creature that costs 3, and you draw a card. So it's a way better version of Magris. It's also Liquid People, which is great because Liquid People have the best Evo cards ever, like Crystal Paladin and Crystal Lancer and all that. So Hulkus, it's just a very cheap way to draw a card and get a body on the field. And there's not much else to say about Aqua Hulkus. Number 4 is Emeral. Now this card is awesome. I love this card. So it's a level 2 creature, it's a Cyberlord, and it's pretty much a shield manipulator. Like, you can do whatever you want with your shields when you play this card, because let's say you're running a deck, and hopefully you should be running somewhere about like a quarter of your deck should be shield triggers, pretty much. And you summon Emeral, and then you take one of your shield triggers, put it in your shields, take that shield, other shield, and put it into your hand, and you pretty much get rid of the expensive shield triggers in your hand, and then trade it for some other card that you could use in the duel. Of course, if you've watched Earth Power's duels, you could actually use Emeral as a bluff. So you could just set, some card that you don't need right now. You just put it there, and put it sideways, and then take another shield, and then they're going to avoid that shield until they start swinging. Of course, it's kind of a risk to do a bluff like that, because maybe they could go swinging and then they just win because there's no shield trigger there. But then again, they could also be thinking that it is a shield trigger, and then they'll be more cautious about it, and then they'll avoid that shield until they know they have game. So that's the real kind of mind games that you could produce with this awesome card. So now we're hitting the top 3. Number 3 is Coral. Now, I know this card might not be usable in every deck that uses water, but just reading the effect is personally one of my most favorite effects of all time, and that's not destroying a creature, not bouncing a creature. You're putting a creature, any creature you want, on the top of your opponent's deck. Wow. Now, you may not think this is crazy because they'll just get the card back, but think about this. You're putting a creature on top of their deck, so they lose the creature, then they draw a card, and look, it's that card again. So what are they going to do with this card? They're either going to summon it again, or they're going to do something different. So you pretty much rewound their turn back to what it was before. Now let's say you have another Coral in your hand. You drew another Coral, you play that Coral, you put it back on top of the deck. There's a reason why it's called Coral Lock, and you're pretty much locking your opponent from doing anything, because you're just limiting their draws, because they draw the same card over and over again, and they lose a creature, so they can't swing with it because it always has summoning sickness. And now number 2, Aqua Surfer. Yes, Aqua Surfer. So this is Spiral Gate in a creature form. And not only that, it is also Liquid People as well. So you could do some crazy stuff with that as well. But Aqua Surfer is pretty much usable in any form of deck, whether it's control or aggro or combo or whatever the heck you're running. Aqua Surfer is amazing. It's just, of course, it's a shield trigger, which is always great. Then you get a creature on board, and then you bounce one of your opponent's creatures. So you're pretty much adding a creature, and they're losing a creature. You're just pretty much changing the board advantage and your advantage easily. Like, you're getting a +2 as far as board goes. But, of course, with hands, he gets back in the hand, and, there's not much you could do about that. But personally, this card is better than Spiral Gate in the fact that it's a creature and it's a Liquid People, so you could do a lot of things with it. Now, of course, there's missing one card in this list, and that's the number 1 card that if you're not running this card in water, I have no idea what you're doing, because it's just amazing. And that's Energy Stream. Draw 2 cards. That's it. I mean, what more can you ask for? It's the cheapest spell that gets you a hand advantage with drop power. I mean, you use Energy Stream, you lose that, and then you draw 2. So you're getting a +1 every time you use it. Draw power is like one of the key things in trading card games, because it gives you more options in your hand for future turns. And of course, decks could work without it. I'm not saying it doesn't work without it, because of course Rush doesn't need it. Possibly even aggro doesn't need it, but I think aggro kind of needs it a little bit at least. So it's just, draw power is insane, and with a card that's only costs 3 and you're drawing 2, you could run this in 4 or any amount as you please because it's just so amazing. So of course there are also a lot of other cards that did not make it to this top 10. There's a couple other draw cards like Brain Serum and Emergency Typhoon. Of course there's the Crystal Evolutions like I mentioned, you know, Lancer being unblockable and Paladin destroying blockers and stuff. And Transmogrify, that's a very gimmicky card that I like to mention. It's like you tribute a creature, and then you flip the top cards of your deck until you get some creature, no matter what the cost is, you summon it. So you could put a King Nautilus in your deck, and you Transmogrify, and you get King Nautilus, and you get this big creature out of nowhere. I always found that to be kind of cool. So that's it, guys. I finally finished the top 10 of every, you know, mono civilization. So probably the next one is going to be either top 10 or 15 or 20 multi-civ cards, because there are cool... I mean, there isn't a lot of multi-civ cards, but there are a lot of good ones. So it's going to be really, really, really hard to squeeze that into a top 10. So there is a chance that it might be bumped up to 15 or 20. So we'll have to see about that. Anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed this top 10 list. And once again, I'm sure you have different opinions on the list, so please feel free to share, you know, some other cards I missed, or what you don't agree with, or what you do agree with, because I like seeing what you guys think. So that's it, guys. This is the TheKaijudoChannel signing off. Hope you had a nice day. See you later.